Good morning, everybody. How are we today on this fine public holiday in Australia? It's good to see you. Can I have just a quick show of hands? How many of you are brand new to the car wash industry? That is awesome. Welcome. Welcome. It is a fantastic industry, and it's also one of those, it's a bit like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never really leave it. So welcome. It's a lifelong commitment. I hope you enjoy yourselves, we should have a lot of fun today. So my name is Craig Cambell. I am, for those of you who are new to the industry, don't let my accent fool you. I am Australian-based, based here in Sydney. Grew up in the US. I've been involved for almost 30 years in the car wash industry in various capacities, on the supplier side, as well as an operator. I owned a self-serve car wash in Denver for many years. I've been out in Australia since 2010, having served and done a lot of export business and lived overseas in Germany for a few times, as well as Denmark and Mexico and a couple other crazier things that we don't talk about. And it is my absolute honor and pleasure to welcome you to the Australian Car Wash Association New Investor Seminar. So this is put on by the Australian Car Wash Association. If you're not a member of this, you should be in some capacity. Fiona is standing in the back. Wave your hand, Fiona. Who not only is responsible for all of these events together with Doug, our CEO, but also will be shanghaiing you to become members. And it is a very worthwhile thing to do. Full disclosure, I'm on the board of the association as well as the board of the international one. It is one of those things that I would strongly, strongly recommend that you do. Get involved. The association is here for you. Has a lot of things that you don't even know yet that you're going to need. So have a chat with the existing members, and make sure that Fiona does grab you at the end. So with that said, we'll kick off proceedings today. I'd like to introduce our panel of speakers. We have, at the very end, we have Vaughn. So Vaughn, you're going to have to help me. Is it?
Pelias.
Pelias. It's a Greek name, so there's several different ways to pronounce that. So Vaughn Pelias.
The Philippines was invaded by everybody. So.
Yeah, including
we
the United States, I should say. Yeah. Although the Spanish had something to answer for that. Anyway, so Vaughn is one of our designers in the car wash industry. Has been in the industry for 15 years and director of designer at Oasis Building Design Proprietary Limited. So one of the people you would go to if you are interested in building a site for all that sort of civil and design help. Likewise, right next to Vaughn is Tracey Michaels. Same sort of industry, a little bit more experience, 18 years rather than 15, and currently director and designer at one of Australia's leading car wash design companies, TMC Building Design Group. So same spiel, you have your choice and a wide array of knowledge. Next to Tracey is Matt Hood, who's had 30 years of experience in the car wash industry, an operator of motor dealerships and car washes in South Australia, and all around well-known local footy star interviewer anyway, I'm told. So welcome, Matt. It's nice to have you back in a even time zone. And then next to him is Rob Sacco, whom I've known for a long time, since, longer than I care to admit, to be honest, since before I came to Australia.
Long time.
And Rob has been in the industry for 23 years, currently the managing director of Waves Car Wash Pty Limited down in the ACT Canberra area. How many sites is that now, Rob? You have two? 5 sites and 100 employees, am I right about that?
That's right.
So yeah, Rob has got a wealth of experience from an operational side, as does Matt, and we'll be happy to walk you through this. So joining us then remotely, we have the president of the International Car Wash Association, Eric Wulf. He will make a brief presentation to us in a little bit, so I'd like to welcome him. And at the tail end of this, last presentation, is Robert Andre, the Senior Vice President of Equipment, Innovation, and Customer Experience at Sonny's, the car wash factory out of Florida in the United States. So that's our exciting lineup. We will have some short presentations just to sort of set the stage from each of the speakers. And then there will be an open Q&A session, which I will help moderate, although looking at your faces out there, you're raring to go. I don't think I'm going to have to moderate at all, to be honest. So. Anyway, with that, I would like to start proceedings then, prior to getting into introductions and Eric. Just a couple of quick recognitions. So last night, did everybody go to the event last night? Yeah? It was good fun. It was a little bit hard to hear. In full disclosure, in defense of Doug and the team at the Australian Car Wash Association, the venue did say they had AV. That turned out to be somewhat different. Anyway, in case you didn't hear it, we inducted 3 people into the Car Wash Hall of Fame here. Tony Stevens, Greg Boston, and David Moynes. They're all running around this area, so if you see them today on the floor, be sure to say congratulations. It is not an easy thing to be inducted into the Australian Car Wash Hall of Fame, and all of those guys have made significant contributions to the industry over the last multiple decades. The next person I'd like to recognize is actually a veteran of World War II, recently passed, and I'd like to recognize that because we don't have many of those people left. Most of those people are about 100 years old now. They're not going to be around for very much longer. It is one of those generations that's quite remarkable, really. Grew up in the Depression and got involved in the war, won it, settled down, had kids, did their jobs, tried to make the world a better place. This particular person's remarkable in a lot of ways because, frankly, never retired. Yes, I'm talking about the Queen. That would be Queen Elizabeth II, who passed away a couple weeks ago, was the Queen of Australia. For those of you who are not, anybody from the US down here, wondering what all the hubbub's about? There you go. Well, she was actually the Queen of Australia as well as the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Canada, Antigua, Bahamas, Belize, Grenada, Jamaica, Papua New Guinea, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Solomon Islands, and Tuvalu. So the monarchy is a sort of an interesting, vexed issue down here, I've learned, as a new Australian citizen. It actually wields real power, believe it or not, and some decades ago, the Queen's vice-regal representative in Australia, the Governor-General, fired a government. So it's been controversial ever since. But nonetheless, it's a system that seems to work for Australia, and regardless of that, regardless of what one thinks about the monarchy, I think it is it's worthwhile that we take a few minutes here and just reflect on the life of a remarkable woman. From my perspective, she's someone who never really expected to have the job. She got the job because of one of the periodic missiles that the US fires at the British royal family. This one was Wallace Simpson in 1936. I guess the biggest one would have been the American Revolution in 1776, and the most recent one, Meghan Markle. So good luck with that one, British royal family. See how that plays out. But anyway, as a result of that accident of history, at the age of 10, she got in line to be for a job that she really never expected to have, probably didn't really want, but nonetheless did for 70 years. She just got on with it. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I cannot imagine what it would be like if I were still alive and still doing this job in 70 years' time. Or 40 years' time, I suppose. But she did it and never once complained. Never once gave an interview, just got on with the job. So regardless of what you think, I mean, it is an extraordinary life, lots of crazy circumstances, and probably a world we could never really relate to, but she did it, she never complained, she got on, and that, to me, is worth something. She did it to the end. 2 days before her death, she appointed her 15th Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, a long line that goes back to Winston Churchill. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is a public holiday in remembrance of the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I would ask that we all stand for and take a few moments of silence in reflection of that, the fact that we are in one of the Commonwealth realms of which she was a queen. So, thank you. Please be seated and let's talk car wash. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce live via satellite from the United States of America in, I'm assuming, your basement in Chicago, Eric. You can tell us if that's true or not. Mr. Eric Wulf, President of the International Car Wash Association.
Thank you, Craig, and welcome to everyone. Craig, that is so on brand, by the way, that you gave us a global and Commonwealth history introduction. So congratulations on that once again. I trust everyone can hear me fine.
Yes.
I want to also say hello to Fiona and Doug and Rob even. I was looking forward to being with you all. I'm sorry it didn't work out. Congratulations to Tony and to Greg and David on their induction in the Hall of Fame last night. I'm sure that was a special event. It's my pleasure, though, to be with you at least via Zoom if I can't be there with you in person. In my brief time I have with you this morning, I'm going to cover three topics. One is this idea of, as an industry around the world, what are some of the growth drivers that we're seeing right now? Number two, then, is I'm going to give you an update on the US market, which may be informative to you, understanding that there are nuances in every different jurisdiction. So I don't claim to have expertise on your continent, but I can at least provide you some of an overview of what's happening here in the States. And then third is, given that this is a new investor seminar, let me give you what I think are some of the implications possibly for all of these trends and things that are happening around the world. And then if there's time, Craig, I'm sure you'll guide me. If we have time for questions, great. If not, or if there's complaints, by the way, those would go to Doug. Questions to me, complaints to Doug. Okay, so with that, let me just introduce maybe the nagging question. You just had one yank kick off the presentation. Now you have a second one. What's going on here? I can understand if you'd have concern. Just to give you a little bit of an overview, I've been with the International Car Wash Association since '06 and in this role since '09. We've got a team of 12 employees and staff members based here in the suburbs of Chicago. The association is governed not unlike the Australian Association by a 16-person board of directors. Craig, as you heard, is on that board of directors, so he's one of my 16 bosses right now. And then we do a few things here that I list off, magazines and shows and education, of course. And I've been fortunate. I'm sure I can't beat Craig, but I've had a car washed in just about 20 countries and look forward to, now that the pandemic is to a close, expanding upon that going forward. So let's talk about these global growth drivers. Macro here, right? And so when we look around the world, these are going to be present in almost every different country or jurisdiction. The one is just this idea of the car wash industry requires some level of affluence, right? That's the grease that keeps the gears moving of the world, is this idea of economic trends. And so this first one I'll just share with you is, number one, we're benefiting from the fact that the entire globe is growing in wealth. It may be a little bit difficult to see on this slide, but there is a vertical line there just to the right of the 1800 graph. That line is the international poverty line as defined by the UN. What's notable is just take a look at what's happened from to 2015 at the very bottom. The vast majority of the world's population now is over that poverty line. There's all sorts of industries that benefit from that, but certainly, the car wash industry is definitely one of those. The second one is, the next thing we require is, you've got to pay for the car wash, but you have to have a car that goes through it. And so this idea of the rising car ownership rates, and any way you slice and dice this data, any way that you look at it, we're in a time of, and have been for a while, significantly increasing ownership rates. Now, we're not going to have time to get into an entire discussion about fleets and automated vehicles and all those types of things and where might that go. But even with some of those models, many of those models expect that there will be more vehicles on the road in 10 years than there are today, and likely in 50 years than there are today. So just more cars able to be washed. And the third macro trend that's really benefiting our industry is more convenience. And when I say that, I really mean more demand for convenience. I mean, this is something we're all more compressed for time. As we have greater affluence, as we have, even greater addiction to social media, time is always going to be at a premium. And so some of these global trends, certainly that were accelerated by the pandemic, of things being delivered to my home. Think about groceries, think about retail restaurants, how much of that business now has become much more convenient. And the good news is there's more willingness of customers to pay for that. So not only do they want to have convenience and speed, but they'll pay for that. Easy payment, efficiency, convenience. I mean, these are trends around the world that pretty much go hand in hand with again, especially the rise of affluence. Now, those are the three macros. What's more specifically to the car wash industry is then where we fit in is this idea of we have a much better car wash to offer the world today than we ever have before. And what I mean by that is it's going to be building design. It'll be the technology in the tunnel or the bay. It will be the convenience of subscription plans or paying with your phone, with your mobile. It'll be the chemistry and detergents that we use in the wash that do a much better job. It'll be all the things that lead to much less vehicle damage than ever before, to the point where, truth be told, vehicle damage is now such a rarity, it's hardly even managed by many car wash operators anymore, which I mean by that is it's not a problem they have to manage. It's a one-off that they'll deal with as it pops up. That's an amazing change from where we were 20 or 50 years ago as an industry. Car washing is better than ever before. We do a better job more quickly with better looking facilities than were imaginable probably even 15 or 20 years ago. So those global growth drivers and our ability to meet it are present in just about every country. I mean, there is truly, the caveat being, interruptible, yes, by economics and politics and war and supply chain, things can happen, but these base drivers, let's knock on wood, the globe will be in greater peril if those other drivers are derailed. But generally speaking, these exist in every jurisdiction, again, in every country just about. So the car wash industry is meeting those with its own great offering and leading to some incredible growth trends. So let's dive into one country in particular, the one I speak to you from today, and that's just the US market. Let's talk about what's happening here in the United States. One is, if you haven't read this article, it may be interesting to you. This just appeared last month in the Wall Street Journal. And the subheading there, if you can't read that from your seats, is private equity wants to wash your car. Sort of, yeah. I mean, they want you to go to the car wash. They don't want to, the private equity folks don't want to per se be involved in the getting dirty of the washing or running it necessarily, but there is incredible attraction to our industry from institutional investors right now. Some of that's the global drivers. Some of that are more specific to the car wash industry in the US. If we were sitting here 5 years ago, I might say there's a handful literally of investment firms at work in the industry. 10 years ago, there'd be essentially none. Now there's something like 40 or more of those platforms, we call them platforms, I'll talk about in a second, that are at work in the car wash industry. So the secret is out. The car wash business is one that lots of people want to be in, and it's changing the market. So what does that look like? What are some of the high level bullets of that? Well, number one is this idea of there is rapid, what I'll call defragmentation happening in the industry. Now, it's consolidation's another way to say that, but it's not as if, and I don't think that all indications point to consolidation being inevitable or full in the end, meaning there being one or two players in the end. What I like as a better description is this idea of defragmentation, and we'll talk about that more in a second. I think there is still a reasonable place for lots of players of scale in the car wash industry. Number two, I mentioned to you before, we've got 40 or more institutional platforms at work in the car wash business trying to rapidly consolidate or merge or acquire car wash locations. And to put a finer point on that, we're not talking, when I say institutional investors or institutional platforms, these aren't a bank or a community credit union or something of the like. We're talking about some of the largest, in fact, in cases, the largest private equity companies in the world. So this isn't any longer, as I mentioned a second ago, a secret. It's out there. The information's available to people. We're talking billion-dollar US dollar transactions, and the largest private equity groups in the world are in the car wash business. They're at car wash events in the US. It's gotten to that level of recognition. The industry is growing rapidly. We estimate that there's somewhere around, I'll just speak to the tunnel market in particular, because my citation here of about 1,000 store growth per year minimum the last couple of years. We probably started in 2019 around 19,000 conveyorized car washes in the US, and we've added 3,000 or 4,000 at least since then, probably. The other high level change that's occurring is subscriptions, these monthly unlimited programs. especially amongst the express operators, the tunnel segment of the market, this is getting to where 2/3 of your revenue is subscription monthly revenue. Some of us are old enough to remember when it mattered when it rained for the car wash business. That's almost hardly the case any longer. In fact, it may even be the opposite of being a problem that it once was. It's now a day where we can get some maintenance done in the tunnel because there's less customers. We can maybe use that as an opportunity. But when 2/3 of your revenue is evened out and you're not dependent upon just those Saturdays and Sundays to drive a disproportionate amount of your volume, the game has changed. And then finally, and this is really proven through in the last couple of years, the business has proven itself in many ways to be pandemic resistant. I always knock on wood when I say that, because let's not tempt fate with the next go around when that happens. But at least in the United States, the car wash business was one of those that generally wasn't shut down. It certainly wasn't shut down for long. And the fact that we were in the business of, as some tunnel operators called it, windows up cleaning, meaning you're separated, you're in your car, your windows are up, you're safely away from people, and you can get your vehicle clean. And candidly, you could have a little bit of joy and pleasure in your day when you were quarantined at home, allowed the industry to keep growing right through COVID, save for maybe just a handful of weeks. And the other that the institutional investor folk have really gotten excited about is that the industry seems to be Amazon proof. What does that mean? Well, Amazon's not delivering car washes to our door with their Prime vans just yet. But so that's been very attractive for the institutional investors. This is a little bit of here's some information, gives you a sense of what does that consolidation, defragmentation look like. So again, maybe a little bit hard to read. My apologies. On the left-hand side, you see the year 2010, the right-hand side, the year 2021. In the US, the top 50 car wash groups previously had a store count of 861. In 2021, that store count is up to nearly 2,800 stores. So significant growth amongst those groups, and also some trading out of what those names were. Currently in the United States, Mr. Car Wash, which is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, ticker MCW, is the largest single operator in the US. They were in the number 4 position back in 2010 with 39 stores. Now they have 10x the number of locations. Now, as I mentioned, though, that doesn't mean that there aren't other operators out there. If you look at the graph down below, and by the way, these are borrowed from sources, not ours. We have other data, but directionally, it's consistent. Their graphics are just prettier than mine, so I'm borrowing them. But you get a sense on the bottom that nearly half of the locations in the US are still single store owners. The other thing that we're seeing is those who are coming into the business are coming in, and we're still seeing plenty of new investors come in, by the way, building more commonly ready to go with 3, 4, 5, 6 or more stores versus just a single store. And then I want to go to 2 stores and 3 stores, et cetera. So I think that the nature of the entrance has changed. It does not mean that there isn't space, though, yet still in the US for stores that aren't part of a retail platform. The way I might describe it is I use this barbell analogy a little bit. And when I use the barbell analogy, let me be clear, I'm not saying that there's only 2 options on the ends of it. In the very middle, you can see my note there, which is there are retailers, there's everything in between, all sorts of models, right? The self-serve jet wash, the in-bays, the single store operator, the people who are paired up with convenience and petroleum retailing. There's all sorts of ways to be successful in this business. But I do think we're seeing some grouping. And the way I describe that grouping being retail platforms, we've talked about those folks on the left-hand side, institutionally backed, M&A is their primary go-to-market strategy. They're regional, if not national, all of them. And they are really hyper-focused on the express model to the extent that in broad terms, they don't want any interior cleaning. They don't want ancillary profit centers. They'd like you to be there for 3 minutes, and they'd like to make sure they can handle the next customer in 3 minutes. The other grouping that I would call them just retail groups on the right-hand side of your screen. So these are notable in that they are larger entries. And what I mean by that is than we would see typically. So 10, 15 years ago, a new investor would be wanting to come in the US with one new store. Now, as I mentioned, they may have land ready to go for 8 or 4 or 9 different stores. They come in with retail experience. They maybe are franchisees for other brands or retail restaurants, as an example. They understand how to scale up a retail service business pretty quickly. And I'd say it's a little more typical that they're also going to be maybe offering some interior cleaning. Now, full service car washing in the US is still, in broad terms, again, I'd say a little against the ropes or unusual. It's rare that people coming into the industry want to deal with labor. Those of you in businesses that rely upon labor understand that. Everyone's looking to automate. But that being said, because everyone else is going toward express washing exterior only, as they zig that way, some other groups are zagging the other way and saying that they're going to differentiate by having an interior option. And interior washing and decently high volume interior washing is also something you see done in Europe quite well, in the German and particularly the Dutch markets. They can do a really good job with process and replicability and speed on interior cleaning. And I think we're seeing some hints of that perhaps happening more in those retail groups as a way for them to be more competitive. And then also finally in the US, I'll say that, we're just seeing, I talked about the macro global growth drivers. We're seeing those same trends here in the US and in many respects, amplified. I mean, we're setting records for our consumer research in terms of people reporting where they most frequently wash their car. You can see there that we think that over the last 20 years, we're washing another 114 million cars. 88% of car owners are using a professional car wash. 80% of those are using a professional car wash most frequently. It's gotten to the point, and again, not to tempt fate, but driveway car washing, it's not even hardly an enemy worth going after anymore. And I give credit to car wash suppliers and operators because they have made car washing so good and so convenient. Unless you're a really hardcore person who's out there swabbing on every element of the tire in your driveway in your classic vehicle, or maybe you find the joy in taking an hour and a half to wash your car in the driveway with the family. There are just fewer and fewer of those people out there. The convenience that we're offering has converted those driveway washers to become our customers. So I'll end with here this idea of what could some of the implications be for investors like you who are sitting there and thinking about the business. And let me give you the caveat of I'm not providing investment guidance to you, all of those things. Craig, I'm sure you'll have that disclaimer delivered several times throughout the day. There are a million ways to make $1 million and even more to lose more in the car wash business, right? There's a lot of things that are dependent upon the trade area that you're in and your particular business plans. But I'll give you 3 things. Number one is what a great business this is, as Craig kicked it off, right? I mean, think about any business that has some of these attributes. Little to no receivables, increasing demand globally, we've talked about. You have real estate under you that will appreciate in value, or you could monetize through sale leasebacks, which are incredibly important or popular right now in the States. This COVID Amazon resistance, inflation resistance. I say inflation, by the way, we just did some recent research on what have the increases in fuel prices over the last, our spring, your fall recently done with car wash demand and subscription loyalty. Resistant is the conclusion of that. We're quite durable as an industry. We're delivering clean and happy to people. I mean, who doesn't love that? There's more exit opportunities than ever before. 20 years ago, not easy to sell your car wash. Today, you better ask folks to take a number in the States. I mean, there's that much interest in buying your business. Low shrinkage, high operating margins for the operating business, and then finally this idea of recurring revenue. I mean, take those 9 attributes. Good luck finding another business that has all of those, like the car wash industry is enjoying right now. But now be ready for, there's some other things that you should be thinking about. Number 2 is the entry requirements are more substantial than they ever have been in the past. Okay. So when I say entry requirements, I mean cost, but also time, and also competition for that piece of dirt that you want to put a car wash on. So these are, US figures. I'll give you US dollars. But when I began, boy, for $2.5 million, you could have a really nice express exterior car wash. Now, people are building car washes in the US, exterior tunnels all in for $7 million and more. There are $10 million express car washes. Now, those have the revenue to support them. Amazing that we're not seeing car wash failures, knock on wood again, but the capital required to get into the business, understanding sites, locating sites, acquiring sites in time before a competitor, all of those things, the complexities haven't lessened. Okay, so be aware of that as you consider the industry. And the third thing is, I would say, is this idea of competitor and network risk. There's more smarter competition than there's ever been before in this business. And at least in the States in particular, this idea of subscriptions, and there is so much growth and demand over the years for car wash services, means that there's more interest than ever before of dropping locations on maps like these, right? So another way of saying this is, I would say in the US market, again, it's never been riskier to be a single site car wash owner, okay? And the reason for that is well-financed competitors are ready to come in and drop multiple stores at one time, right? And that's their goal. Once the merger and acquisition market gets to a certain point of equilibrium, and maybe we're there a little bit because I think multiples for acquisitions have cooled off slightly in the past 6 months, greenfield and new store development is going to be at a premium. Well, those competitors of yours in the US here are ready to go with teams of people on the development side looking for sites. So again, not that the business isn't possible to be successful with one store, but that's why you're seeing more and more people saying, I'm going to find a trade area, and I'm going to say, if that trade area can support 3 car washes, I might drop 4. So at least I'm my own competition, and I can address all the demand that's there. So I think that's a risk factor to keep in mind going forward. So one really incredibly positive thing, all the business attributes, 2 things to keep in mind on the risk side of the equation. But here's what I think is still the wonderful thing about the car wash business is the entrepreneurial spirit and the entrepreneurial moxie. And I've never seen an industry like this one where there are people, the DNA of this industry has been people who are going to find a way to make it happen on that piece of dirt that they've selected. And there are, as I mentioned before, all sorts of ways to be successful in this business. So Craig, that's the end of my kickoff. And if I'll leave it to you if there's time for Q&A, great. If not, I want to thank everybody again and have a great rest of your seminar.
Great. Thank you, Eric. We really appreciate that. We'll do some Q&A here at the end after we hear from the rest of our presenters. So hang around and let's see what happens. So I do appreciate that. I should probably give a bit of context to why did we kick off the Australian Car Wash Association New Investor Seminar with the presentation from the United States. And the answer to that is that this market tends to track what happens in the US. And when we talk, Eric happens to be US based, but the trends he spoke about are actually global. You see a lot of them happening out through Europe as well. The US is the single largest car wash market in the world, and what happens there affects us because it affects our suppliers, it affects the kind of equipment we can do. People look to that market, rightly or wrongly, for inspiration and guidance. So I would view to look at that as potentially a glimpse into the future of what could be. Obviously, we'll have a different flavor down here, but that's why it is, we've kicked it off this way. So with that said, we will now get into the nitty-gritty of what does it look like here on the ground in Australia. However, not before I do what I should have done to kick this meeting off and didn't do because I haven't had enough coffee yet, and that is recognize our sponsor for today's session, and that is Carwash Solutions Australia, together with Sonny's The Carwash Factory. That is Josh Cameron and his team. Josh, you guys want to stand up? They're the ones in the yellow, bright yellow shirts, hard to miss. So they'll be on the floor. Thank you very much for putting this on, guys. And Robert Andre, who will speak last, is part of the Sonny's The Carwash Factory in the U.S. So without any further ado, I would like to call up and introduce Tracey Michaels from... There we go. Tracey Michaels from TMC Building Design Group. Off you go, Tracey.
So which one do I press?
Forward. Right.
That one. For those of you guys at the back, there's a lot of seats down the front here. Did you want a seat? Okay. Well, I'll wait for it. Yay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tracey Michaels, and I'm from TMC Building Design Group. And today I've been asked to have a debate with myself about the pros and cons for buying an existing car wash or developing a new one from scratch. We all know how much I like to talk, and the points that I could make for both of these options would far outweigh the 15-minute time frame that I'm allowed to speak for. So I'll try and keep my presentation brief and thought-provoking as possible. So today we're going to touch on what I consider are the 6 main points that should be considered when deciding to purchase or lease an existing site or develop a new site. These are all of the different money considerations that need to be made. What are the major hidden costs that you should be looking out for? Limitations and possibilities with the site layout, the life cycle of your equipment, customers, where to start when you have a few or you've got none, and procedures and processes, and yes, you're going to need them. Finally, I'll give you some hot tips if you're purchasing or leasing a site, an existing site, and want to renovate based on what happened in a past project of mine, and what to look out for if you're considering converting an existing self-serve wash bay into an automatic wash bay. And that's something that I know I do, and probably you, Vaughn, quite frequently. So, as most of you have found out, getting into the car wash industry from scratch can be quite a costly exercise. The 3 big cost ticket items that you need to be considered are obviously the cost of the land, the cost of the building, and the cost of the equipment. The cost of the land could be anywhere from $300,000 to over $1 million. And the build costs can vary substantially, especially all around different parts of Australia. These days, I've commonly found that the build cost is anywhere from $850,000 to $2.1 million. And that obviously depends on the size of your site and what you're doing. The cost of the equipment can vary from anywhere around $400,000 to $900,000. So again, depending on your location, of the site design, you might need somewhere from $1.6 to $3.5–4 million to get into the market. And that's only for those 3 main items as well. So typically, for a new site, you should allow anywhere from 12 to 24 months from the time that you start your design process until you're actually washing cars. You also won't be making any income during this time. So if you're borrowing the money, make sure that you've got any loan repayments factored into your budget. So let's compare this to purchasing or leasing an existing site. Typically, the purchase or lease price of an existing site is cheaper, typically, but not always the case. Unless the site's been recently renovated or it's got new equipment installed. It's usually much cheaper to renovate an existing site from scratch as well. Usually, but not always. Typically, extensions and rebranding costs would be around $120,000 to $800,000, depending on what you're doing. But you'll also have immediate income, as a car wash would usually be in some type of state to actually wash cars from the start. Usually, but not always. You can keep washing cars until you've got all of your plans in place for your renovation, and then you may still be able to remain partly open while you actually do your extension. Existing sites will also have all of the infrastructure and utilities connected. So unless an extension or bay conversion is planned, you may not necessarily have to worry about these extensive costs. Items to look to improve your existing site turnover would be to rebrand the site with new signage, new paint, and possibly some new equipment, especially if the current site is run down or has been managed poorly in the past. Or convert a self-serve wash bay into an automatic wash bay, as many older sites still don't have automatic wash bays. So, hidden costs. Hidden costs for any new works come in many forms, and I've seen some doozies over my years. Some can be anticipated, such as standard weather delays during construction, but who can predict the extreme flooding that we've had, bushfires, or the lockdowns of the last few years as well? And they can also play havoc with shipping delay for many building products and materials, let alone the price rises that we've seen for many materials and labour shortages or time delays getting the various trades to actually come and work on your site. All these add cost, and in one way or another, especially to a new build. Poor quality construction documentation can also lead to construction delays, along with insufficient soil testing, poor site soil conditions, poor engineering design and design practices, inexperienced builders or trades, all greatly add to the overall build cost and time delays for your project. And when you're not actually operating, it's costing you money. A very big point to stress would be to understand and research the cost to supply services to a new site. Sometimes the costs of water, sewer, and especially power, in particular some areas around Australia, is very costly and can cost a small fortune, especially in projects in New South Wales, where the development contribution fees for council for a new car wash development can be a massive barrier in entry to the marketplace. I've seen some councils try to charge over $400,000. So engaging a consultant that knows how to negotiate these type of matters on your behalf is paramount to saving a lot of money. Hidden costs for an existing site typically will come in the form of higher maintenance costs due to an ageing building. Flaking paint, tiles falling off the wall, outdated signage are quite common. While you can see the existing building, you should be wary also of what you can't see, such as underground pipe leaks, plumbing not going where it should be, rusting of roof purlins, past building compliance issues. I know of one site at the moment where the new owner is being forced to spend over $150,000 to address a noise complaint that the past owner would have known about, sold the site, but he didn't disclose it on the sale of business. And the latest update is that the site may actually end up being closed down. So some things that you wouldn't even think about are important to investigate quite thoroughly. So most, if not all, of the equipment for a new build is also new. So if there should have a low chance of breakdown. The car wash equipment is quite expensive to purchase, but it's important to document and maintain a full maintenance program with your equipment supplier to increase its lifespan. Unexpected breakdowns can be very costly for critical parts. Impact of lost income from affected wash bay or wash bay should also be taken into account when weighing up the risk and associated costs of a good maintenance program. For an existing site, car wash equipment will already be existing. But I've seen sites that are already been built with equipment that's 15 or 20 years old. Sometimes it might be better to replace this equipment than pay a lot of money on maintenance costs to fix breakdowns for older and outdated models. So when you take over an existing site, you may not know the condition of all the existing equipment or how well it's been maintained in the past. If possible, ask to see the past service reports of all these essential equipment items. Equipment breakdowns would usually be more prevalent in older equipment that's not been well serviced and maintained. Lost income through bay closures should also be factored into all non-scheduled breakdowns. All sites will need to generate a new customer base. All new sites will need to generate a new customer base. Executing an effective marketing campaign is essential to let the community know that you're actually ready for business. So having a grand opening day or weekend and getting publicity in the local newspaper or on the radio is a great way to start to raise community awareness of your site and attract new customers. Long-term solution to customer retention can include advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and sponsorship of local community and sporting groups is also quite encouraged, as is maintaining a clean site and hiring some friendly staff. Typically, an existing site will already have an existing customer base, but if the site's quite run down, it's possible that many of these past customers have also been lost. It may be important to differentiate yourself from the previous owner by having an under new management grand opening type day or a sign or banner placed at the front of the site and being active on social media. Also, after any refurbishment works have been completed, I'd also suggest to have a grand opening day, but it may not be as impactful as having a grand opening day for a brand new site. So if you're a new car wash operator in the industry, regardless if your site's new or existing, the learning curve's going to be quite steep. But more so if your site is new. You'll need to develop systems and manuals and develop new work practices, maintenance schedules, and employ and train new staff. It can be quite overwhelming. Being a member of Aqua, seeing Fiona, is a great first step forward where we can access all of this information in quite a variety of formats that will help you along the way. Topics include management of work health safety, industrial relations, wage rates, risk management, just to name a few, and quite a lot of that is on the member section of the Aqua website. If you're purchasing an existing site, you'll have access to all of the existing systems. Typically, you'll be able to negotiate a handover with the existing owner or operator, and that way you can learn the ropes as you go. And after a little while, you'll have an idea of what's required, so you can tweak, update, or totally overhaul all of the operations, procedures, and work practices on the site to suit how you'd like to run your own business. If you're developing a new site, you've got the perfect opportunity to design the site to best maximise the return on your investment, to suit the current day standards and safe-proof for the future. Some of the most important design features that I'm sure Vaughn will talk about later will be to regulate traffic flow, maximise vehicle queuing, have optimal wash bay sizing, have the correct vehicle wash placement, and have the plant room that's actually big enough to store your equipment. After consideration, also we should be thinking about site acoustics, adjustments due to nearby residential properties, and requirements for building setbacks or easement implications. If your site's an existing, you're going to have limited opportunity to correct any current design flaws. If you choose to, these could be costly. As a result, you could end up with a site that never is actually going to achieve its potential earning due to this poor initial design. And I've seen this quite a number of times. So the advice is based on a project that I worked on a few years ago, purchasing an existing car wash site. So they wanted to do a refurbishment and convert an existing self-serve bay into an automatic wash bay. And I was preparing the town planning documentation, and I requested a copy of the current planning documentation and construction drawings from council. But what I found was that what council had previously approved was not what has actually been built. The wash bays and plant room were not in the same configuration. What else was there? The driveway had been extended and there was an extra vacuum bay. So what happened? The client, what we had to do was apply for the new works, but we also had to apply for the retrospective changes that had been done to what was originally approved. So council had no trouble approving the application, but because of these initial unknown changes that had actually taken place, the application took a little bit longer to get approved. So the lesson, if you're purchasing a new site, always ask for a stamped copy of the most recent planning drawings and construction drawings if possible, and also a certificate of occupancy, soil testing reports and the like. And make sure what's actually documented is what's actually been built. So, one of the most common renovation requests that I get asked to do is what do I need to convert a self-serve wash bay into an automatic wash bay? The main items would be, is the wash bay big enough to actually fit, or will it need an extension? Is there enough room in the plant room to actually place a new pump stand? Does the site have enough power? Does the site have enough water supply? Will I need extra water tanks? And where are they going to go? And how are they going to get plumbed? Will the queuing work for the new wash bay? Or will it actually affect other parts of the sites and access into those wash bays? Where does the in-bay silt pit drain to? Does the underground plumbing need to be altered? Will the oil separator need to be upgraded? So there's many things that need to be considered prior to committing to any wash bay extension. So I hope you've liked my presentation today, and it's been a little bit thought-provoking and informative as the debate of developing a new site or purchasing an existing site. My name's Tracey Michaels, and I'll be available at booth 63 if you guys have got any questions later in the day. Enjoy. Thank you.
Well done, Tracey. Thank you very much. That was very enlightening. How about another round of applause for Tracey, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah.
Thank you.
I can tell you, look, I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. One of those, I ended up on a local council here in Sydney. And her comments about the planning guys and the planning departments and what is the difference between built form and what actually was there, those are not to be underestimated. And council planning officers do tend to get a little bit prickly when they uncover things that have been done that they didn't know about. So I would definitely advise you to take advice from professionals like these guys when you get into planning matters. So our next presentation I would like to tee up is Mr. Rob Sacco from Waves Carwash. I notice here on your bio, Rob, it says that in 2003 you were seduced by the opportunities you saw in the industry.
Seduced.
So I, for one, am looking forward to seeing what seduction in car wash looks like in this built form. Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Sacco.
Good morning. Excuse my hoarse voice. Yesterday we were inundated at our stand, which was fantastic. And I did a lot of talking, and it's a bit dry, so I apologise up front. So just a little bit about, first of all, I actually want to thank the Australian Car Wash Association for asking me to do this presentation and sharing my insights and thoughts of the car wash industry. I'm probably a character that's tried everything in the car wash. I have an array of different sites, configurations and combinations to determine what works best, or at least understand, a model that would actually give us a good return on investment. And I'll share that with you today. The objective really today is to give people an insight, the new to industry people, an insight to the different models we have in the car wash industry. I'm not giving an opinion, it's purely the models available today in Australia and New Zealand. So my topic for discussion today is the car wash business model. And I will touch back on Craig. I was seduced by the industry. I fell in it by accident and I haven't left. I've definitely got chemicals in my veins. I'm enthusiastic. I love the industry for the people and the way that the industry is very open and transparent and sharing of information. I've never been involved in businesses that you get individuals sharing so much information and freely volunteering information so that we actually get better car washes and become a more professional industry. And that has actually changed, and Eric touched on that. Australia is very much following Australia, and I see that there is tremendous opportunities for the new investors coming into the Australian market to move away from the old tired sites and bring new exciting developments to our customer base, and that will actually lead to more people washing cars and good businesses. So, a little bit of history. 23 years in the car wash business. So I've got a bit of a cross-section of knowledge. I've actually been on the Australian Car Wash Board for 10 years. I was a representative of the Australian Car Wash Association for 10 years. I also was involved as a supplier for 10 years. So I've sat on both sides of the fence as a supplier and also as a retailer of car wash to our customers. So I've got a little bit of an insight of what goes on. That's a snapshot of our latest site. I have 5 sites in Canberra. I'll just flick to that. So we currently operate 5 sites across Canberra. As Eric touched on, one of the things that, and again from the Americans and understanding what they do, is it's a very good strategy to actually look at a region and see if you can actually, I wouldn't consider it a stranglehold, but if you can certainly have a bigger presence in the region, so that makes your brand, your advertising and everything that goes with it, you can amortize that across the networks and share those costs and expenses, and also your customers get to know that brand. And what we've done is we've ventured off into different models so that the customer has variety, because not every customer is a full service customer, nor are they a friction or a touchless customer. They might be a do-it-yourself enthusiast. So we're across all those spectrums, and as I said, we've sampled all the different car wash, practically all the different car wash models available in Australia. So what model best suits you and what should you consider? So I'll actually start at the bottom here. I should really put that up the top, but I think it's very important. I just took this report out of IBIS Report, which is a global reporting organisation. And they estimate that the Australian car wash turns over $577 million based in July 2022. And there are about 2,200 plus businesses, and it employs 3,500 people approximately. My calculations from what I've done, and I'm a very analytical sort of person, I think they've undercooked that by 100% from a revenue perspective. Australia is well beyond $1 billion of turnover in car washing, as in revenue. They don't have the data of every car wash around the place, and we have quite a wide spectrum. But that gives you just a bit of an understanding of the opportunity, and like Eric said, it's actually growing globally. They indicated that it's growing in Australia about between 2 and 4% annually. That's quite conservative based on inflation rates, etc. So if we have a look at this, what are the car wash markets? And particularly in Australia and New Zealand, we call them our cousins over in New Zealand. So we break it up very simply. We've got the self-serve market bays. We have in-bay automatics, and that's a combination of either touch-free and friction machines. Tunnels and express modelling, that's becoming more prevalent now in Australia. You'll see them popping up, again, following the US model, and we tend to follow the US patterns in European. Full service, definitely a big market still in Australia for full service. The hybrid model, that's something that is very new, difficult, but it allows you to actually put a finger in every car wash business. So I run a few hybrid models, and that's a combination of tunnels with in-bay automatics, with self-serves, with full service express interiors, all on one site. So it basically becomes a wash depot. So your customer has choice. The reasoning and my thought process behind it is that people come to you as a brand and you're tailoring your offering to that customer, that may start off as a self-serve customer, and then you can actually give them the journey along the way in relation to experiencing different car wash services. And that's what we've tried, and we've seen that the results of that, where a traditional self-serve customer will come in and spend on average between $7 and $12, and now that they're spending up to $40, $50, $100 on some of our full services. So they get comfort with your brand, and then they stay with you if you engage them with the loyalty programs and the services. Hand washing, Australia, the main reason with the hand washing is predominantly before we had a good labour force. Everybody's struggling globally with labour, but the hand washing market, very prevalent. People went on the bus tour, in particularly in the big cities in Australia. Cheap startup costs and a lower investment, I shouldn't say cheap. It's a lower initial investment, smaller real estate typically in most applications. That is quite a labour intensive operation. So with the shortage of labour, etc., that is a different model for those who are considering it. Just need to understand what's involved.
Excuse me.
So, what? Okay, so what I've done, I'm not going to go through all of this. This will be available. Fiona and the team will have this available for you, but I'm just going to give you, I'm going to go through the first slide. So this is what we look for, well, I look for when I'm looking at a site and the different market segments. And I've put this matrix together, and this is could be a tool for you to have a look, especially for the new investors, what to consider in when you're evaluating what car wash model you want to be in. So if we take the self-serve, you know, I look at footprint for self-serve. Typically self-serve, most people are building 2 is a small self-serve bay, but they build from 2 to 6 is probably an industry average. So your real estate, it does take up a lot of real estate. And as we all know, real estate hard stand is very expensive and getting more expensive. So then what you need to look at is that piece of land, what's your return on investment? And that what basically equates to is throughput, cars per hour. Cars per hour at average, and that's average dollars. So I dropped off, there it is, the dollar there. So that's average dollars per customer. And that's how you can actually calculate very simply what you're going to generate from that piece of land. And that's how we look at it as car wash operators. You've got a big piece of dirt, you've got to build it, you've got to invest in equipment. What is that going to produce me? Based on attracting customers to come to your site, because that's the biggest challenge we face. You can have a lump of dirt, but if you're not, as they say, sweating the asset and utilising the equipment, you're not making money. And then the presentation's actually missing a few things. It's dropped off. So maintenance and training. Let's see if it's on this next page. Okay, so I'll just go there. So your labouring, I'll go back there on the self-serve. So it should be the labour is very important, obviously. Maintenance is also important, whether you're going to use your own labour to maintain it or your supplier's labour. And the last thing is training. Anybody who's in car wash or is looking at car wash, don't underestimate the value of training in your business. You need to train people. Even if you employ 1 or 2, you need good training models. If you have one site or multiple sites, so that you can, depending on your business plan, you can drive away from the business and have your staff. But training is fundamental. And I've learnt, I have over 100 employees, and we have very, very robust and learning all the time training models so that you can impart that education. And you'll see a lot of the manufacturers have training schools, car wash universities, because they realise car washers need to be available all the time for their customers. So they'll always break down on a Saturday when you've got 100 people queued up to get into your site. So training and staff training engagement with your customers is fundamental. So then what we look at, and this is how we're seeing trends and changing in the marketplace. Operationally, we've got self-serve, for instance, customers. The customer is very familiar with the equipment, what the technology does. It's easy to use. You're washing a lot of utes. When I say utes, irregular style vehicles, those sort of things come through the self-serve market. People have got more time on their hands. So it captures a big market audience. Profit, it's typically a steady revenue, and your uptime of equipment in a self-serve is greater because there's less things to go wrong, less human interaction. The big key thing that's actually changing in our industry that everybody will see is we're moving away from cash. COVID has actually forced people to use other forms of currency, being the digital currency and cashless. So we're seeing a very big change in traditional cash, and we're moving to credit cards, apps, other payment styles. And that's one thing that led me to get into. 4 years ago, I saw that, and I actually partnered with some people and got into our own development of software and back-end car wash management systems and payment apps, etc., to make that customer experience far easier and better, and also to get a higher dollar revenue spend. If you make the experience and the technology accessible, customers will spend more money. And I've got all the data from the traditional cash moving to all the systems that we have growth month on month. Our cash is reducing. We're at now across the board. We're all on our in-bays and all our tunnels. It's 100% cashless. In our self-serve bays, we run about 82%, and it's diminishing. That's 82% credit card or payment type or digital payment, and cash is diminishing. Now, some people loved cash in our industry traditionally. We all like cash, but it's dwindling. So that gives you an idea of the self-serve bays. In-bay automatics, I'll just touch on a couple of key points here. The key thing with the in-bay automatics, and they can be combined with self-serves or they can be standalone in convenience service stations, but one of the real good things about in-bay automatics is that they are definitely a convenience and impulse purchase. They can operate like self-service 24/7, but the return on investment on the square metre rate is probably one of the highest. There's very low labour required in these operations. It's basically an activation system or a flexible style payment system, but the key attribute here is per square metre, they are a very good income producer. So that's based on what we see out in the marketplace, and that's why you traditionally see them out in service station operations and also in self-serve bay combinations. So that gives you a bit of an idea of in-bay automatics. Hand wash, as I touched on before, the beauty of the hand wash market is, well, there's a couple of things. It's profit. If we look at it, the profit is not a heavy investment in equipment, but they certainly have a very high dollar spend per customer. So they have the opportunity to upsell, add value, do polishes, do a lot of extra added value services. So their cost, dollar average per car is far greater. And we know that from our own experience because we do, through our hybrid model, we do an equivalent to a hand wash through automation and our dollar average per customer. But the key thing there is to get output, however, is you need more labour. So that's the challenge. So if you're considering it, you know that's what you're getting in for. You can't produce more cars unless you've got more people. And it's reliant on people. And technology for them is also moving to more loyalty systems and communications. And the easy thing for the car washes, they're easy set up in small, either in a shopping centre or in a standalone corner in the back of a service station. So their barriers to entry are a lot easier than building a self-serve or an automatic facility or a tunnel. So that gives you a bit of an insight. Tunnels and express, definitely on trend in the US. Europe is a very mature market. Australia, we are getting traction, absolutely getting traction. The manufacturers out the show will tell you that. We are getting an enormous amount of traction. I operate 3 tunnels, so we see that the volumes that you can produce through those tunnels are significant. So you have tunnels that typically range from 40 cars an hour to, say, in Australia, up to 100, 120 cars an hour. We'd love to be the American models that are pumping out 200 cars an hour, but I just don't think we're there yet. And we don't have tunnels that are 60, 70 metres long. So our tunnel is, the throughput is actually determined by the length, so you can get more cars in as a rule of thumb. But with tunnels, you do need a lot of real estate, definitely quite a lot of real estate. If you've got the volume right, the return on investment is significant. And the easiest way to get that is through, if we look at technology, is through Wash Club. And I can tell you personally my own data. Our latest express tunnel, which is actually that site there, we run 75% of our customers are club members. So that is recurring revenue every month. So that's one model. We have another site that runs about 55% club members, and another tunnel site only runs 15 because we don't promote club there. So that gives you the spectrum of, there's how you target your market, the audience and the availability, but that is what I call the Netflix of car washing. You have reoccurring revenue come in, and you need the right technology and the equipment to make it easy. But definitely the subscription model, and you need to feed volume because you need real estate. And key thing there is training and maintenance. Like Eric said, downtime is fundamentally, you don't want any because that machine needs to pump volume. It's a sausage factory for you. Full service, and this can be hybrid combination style models. We've ventured from the traditional wash your car in a tunnel and then comes out and use the stationary and then you vacuum them. Our latest site we've just done is we actually have an interior belt. I went to the Audi factory in Germany back in 2018 and I looked at how they produce cars, and we went to German facilities, car washes in Europe who are very process driven, and we looked at their operation and said, how can we improve? Because I had a logistics person come into our business and pointed out to me at watching how many steps that we do, our staff. So when you've got multiple staff and you've got steps, they count the steps and work out how much wasted labour and time you have. And every time a person moves 2-3 steps away from their workstation, and you multiply that by staff, if you've got 5, 10, 15 people working for you, the amount of wasted time on your site is phenomenal. Our latest development in Canberra has a full interior express belt where my staff do not move more than 6 metres, and that's the length of the car, and they stay on that belt and they don't go to the next station, they stay in their spot. So it's exactly like a vehicle manufacturing plant where they do their services and their duties and they're not allowed to go any more forward. So that's changed the model, reduced our labour, and also increased our throughput is in turning around cars. And one of the things that car wash operators, this is a thing that I put forward for you. Think about that you're actually, whoops, I killed it there, that's good. Wow. There you go, I got your presentation.
Yeah, keep going. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm going. Perfect. How good is that? Okay, so, wow. Sorry, I'm a great talker, so I'm going to cut it quick. Thank you. So, just lost my train of thought there.
How good it was. You were saying how good it was.
That's it. As an industry, we're selling time in self-serve bays. If you're moving into the valet model, hybrid model, any of those models, start training your customers. You're selling time. So if you work out what your time is per hour, rather than just throwing more services at them, consider that you're selling time and you're getting a return on your investment for your time. And the Americans taught us that, and that's one real big key element that we learned is you're selling time. Actually, I've got a couple more slides. The hybrid I've explained, so it's all there. It's pretty cool. The different models also depend where you are regionally. So if you're based in a regional, metro, a suburbia, industrial area, and rural, you can analyse what model works best in those areas and determine what equipment would best suit based on real estate, the cost of land, etc. But that's where we break it up and look at what model suits the different geographical locations. Questions to ask yourself: how much do you want to be involved? Do you want to be a passive investor? That's obviously where a lot of people want to be. Hands-on operator, single or multi-use operator. Consider your operational hours because they vary based on the model that you select. Very important because you can be a 24-hour business, 7 days a week, or restricted hours if you're doing full service. What's your end goal? Very important. What do you want to do with your business in years? I've been in 23 years. I've got very clear goals where I want to be in another 3 and 5. People and training, very important, and maintenance, never underestimate preventative maintenance, invest in maintenance. And my final thoughts. First thing for this, and this is a great thing about the association, research. You can never do enough research. Talk to people, very important, your research. Supplier relationship is the most fundamentally important thing if you're getting in the car wash business. If you don't have a good relationship with your suppliers, every supplier, they will support you, they will look after you, they'll tell you a lot of insights of what's going on. Make sure you've got great supplier relationships. Network, the associations, the Car Wash Association, talk to people. Car wash guys are passionate, they're crazy like me, they'll share the information. Select your model. Marketing is fundamental. Don't get in the business if you don't understand marketing or going to employ somebody to market your business because you're wasting your time. If you don't market your business and use all the social media platforms, every different platform that is available to you, you won't go nowhere. I can say that we've had from the time I got into the car wash business 23 years ago, I've always had marketing people, and we're out there in every social media platform, and we're getting hits, 3.5 million, I think 3.9 million hits. Our social media guy told me the other day on our TikTok posts and things like that. You've got to get your brand out there to people. Have the succession plan. Don't start your business without a business plan. Just make sure you got that business plan. Find a mentor. Number one thing is I found multiple mentors in the car wash industry, picked the hell out of their brains. Great people all over the world. I've travelled, I've seen thousands of car wash. You need mentor. Do not start a business without having a mentor. And today you need technology. Pick the technology and make sure that your business, cash is gone, forget it mate, it's gone. You've got to look at all the new technologies available to you to generate income. And it's a great industry. Reach out, people will share their experiences and ask plenty of questions. Thank you. That's it. Sorry, just one last thing. I got cut off just 30. Okay, so I represent Waves, Pulse, but also with two of my colleagues at work, we are actually launching Car Washing Down Under, which it will be a social media platform, Facebook and a network, a community network to represent Australia and New Zealand. So keep your eyes out for Car Washing Down Under. We're working behind the scenes and we'll be launching that to create engagement in a group. They do it in America very well, but I think Australia has very specific and unique requirements that we can share amongst our community and then also communicate that with our American colleagues across there. So just that's a final thing. Thank you very much. Sorry for going a bit longer.
Well done. Fantastic, Rob. Thank you for sharing all that. I should also point out you made mention of training and the necessity of that. So there is also online e-learning available through the International Car Wash Association through their LEAD program. Some of it's more specific to the North American market in terms of IR and OH&S, but for the most part, a lot of that stuff is translatable. So also resources available globally, and everyone, as you point out, in the industry, people are happy to help. So our next presentation, it comes from Vaughn Pelias. So who needs no further introduction after our initial one, who will expand on thoughts about how you get going in the industry, what do you do, what are the challenges you face, and how you bring it to succession. So, Vaughn, please make him welcome.
Thanks, man. Get this, going the wrong way already, perfect.
Sorry, I should have done that for you.
That's all right. I just wanted to say thank you to Aqua for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I think it's a really great honour to be in the presence of all these business owners with so much experience in the industry. I'm quite humbled by what they know. So my presentation hopefully will be quite short because they've done most of the work for me. Just as an introduction, Oasis Building Design has been operating for only 4 years, since 2018. We're a multidiscipline design practice. And prior to that, I worked for RJ Sinclair, which is also a multidiscipline design practice who specialises in car washes. So I've learnt the trade through RJ Sinclair. We do everything from concept designs through to council approvals, all the way to helping business owners and developers prepare construction drawings and even through the construction process as well, tendering and project management and things like that during the construction process. Okay, so Aqua's asked me to speak on specific topics today. So the topic is Beyond Clean, creating the perfect car wash site. So the design considerations regarding that, what the customer wants, renovation or new development, planning considerations, space requirements and limitations, and then best practice design considerations. I'm going to more concentrate on the last 3 points. I think what the customer wants and the business side of things, Rob's spoken greatly about. The renovations or new development, Tracey's killed it. So I'm just going to skip those pretty quickly. So what the customer wants, it's about you guys deciding what you want to do and have a business plan in terms of what your business wants to do, but then consider what that business and the clients want in that business. Again, Rob's spoken a lot about that. You know, there's the automatic and the manual type offer. There's the self-serve offer. There's the valet full service offer. And then you can think about adding things to that. I do plans all the time where, you know, let's add this and that. Let's add a dog wash. Let's add a vacuum bays, very standard. And then you can go beyond that too and add other businesses as well, such as laundromats, storage units, and even industrial units. The next part is renovations versus new development. Again, Tracey's done all the work for me. It's all about your budget, what you can afford. It's about what you can reuse on the site, what's existing, how can you utilise that if you want to do extensions or renovations. And then the old government, whether it's new or existing, there's always hidden costs, and Tracey spoke about that. And the one thing I wanted to highlight was the contributions, which is so, it's disproportionate and inconsistent, even in New South Wales. You know, you get one brand new site, greenfield site, rural, that the contributions were 20 to 50,000, and then another site, existing service station site, had a hand wash, and all he wanted to do was put auto, and the contributions were $180,000. Like, it's just so crazy. So you really need to invest your money in professionals to help you and guide you and you know, help you know about the risks that can come when developing any business. So planning considerations. So, you know, you've got your business plan, you've done your feasibility studies, and then these crush your dreams. You find a site, and you have to know the zoning. At state level, you have to know the zoning, what's permitted, what's prohibited. So many people come to me, oh, Vaughn, I found this site, great spot, you know, R2. Oh, sorry, mate, not permissible, you can't build it there. So you need to know these things, be aware of it, and use professionals that can research and do that little due diligence for you. I do this stuff for free. Like, it's really basic. Anyone can do it in New South Wales as a planning portal, and you can access all these things. You can find out maximum building height, maximum building floor area, whether it's in a bushfire area, flood area, heritage, biodiversity, you know, koala, special, it's just, there's everything. And then you get to council level, and the planning considerations regarding council level are things like setbacks. So, you know, you can't build all the way to the front necessarily on every site. Parking requirements, landscaping requirements, especially if you're in, you know, a high visual area, and then also your road authority. They give you, well, they tell you what you can and can't do in terms of access to your site. And then you come to Tracey and I, and then we crush your dreams a little bit more.
Hopefully not.
Your site, you found a site and said, yep, you can build a car wash there, no problems. Well, we can get it through council. And the site considerations you have are the size. So typically, you know, you can do with 100 to 1,000 square metres, you can do a valet type site. Auto sites, 250 to 400. And then you've got an auto type offer and self-serve. So you've got small types of those, which is 500 to 800 square metres, which is more your self-serve, your service station type offers with a car wash attached to it. Then you've got your medium-sized sites, which is 1,000 square metres to 1,500, which is usually a 1+3, which is 1 auto and 3 self-serves, or you can have a different combination of those as well. Tunnels will also work as well for those types of sites. And then larger sites, 2,000 metres square and over. So those types of sites, Rob's sites, things you can add on to, you can have that industrial unit, you can have that storage unit, you can have that laundromat additional offer with sites that size. And then another consideration is the shape. Obviously, not every site you find is rectangular, square. There's corner blocks, there's triangular shapes, there's all irregular shapes that you can come across. So again, keep that in mind when you're looking at the size. Access and egress is a massive issue. Traffication, when it comes to site limitations, is really critical. So knowing the best access in and out, but also understanding what the local authority will allow you to have in terms of access. So I know sites where council will say, no, 1 access and egress, and that's it. That's all you get, So knowing that information or finding out that information is really critical as well. And then services, again, Tracey touched on this as well. Power is a massive issue in New South Wales. The timing for upgrade of power connections, and things like that is just absolutely crazy. Sewer, obviously, I've done one site in, I think it was Northern Territory, where they didn't have sewer. So, sewer is massive. You're discharging a lot of wastewater to sewer. So you've got to make sure you've got sewer connections. And then, obviously, comms, water, stormwater are critical as well. So best practice design considerations. What have I got on this slide? Good visibility of the wash bays from adjacent streets is important. You want to have a nice visual presence of your building and your signage. There's nothing worse than, you've got a nice site, but people just drive past it. They don't see it. There's no visual presence. So that's really important. Again, good queuing to wash bays is important, not only for your customers, but also from council's perspective and the road authority's perspective. The ability to wash and then vacuum, or vacuum then wash. So I think it's important that the customer gets some choice. So if there's queuing cars for the wash bays or auto bays, they can duck into the vacuum, and then when that sort of queuing's calmed down, they can go back and do a wash as well. So things like passing lanes are important. General one-way direction flow and traffic movement is huge. When I say one-way traffic, it's more important in the queuing and the access and egress. There is parts of design where you can have two-way directional flow, and I'll give you an example of that coming up as well. And obviously having a site that's environmentally friendly, rainwater harvesting, recycling, those are the things that are going to help you cross that hurdle when there's massive contributions from council, which I've helped people negotiate through. Having quality equipment is important. Again, Rob's touched on that. And also robust construction. Customers are terrible. Car drivers in general are terrible drivers. So, having a robust construction is important as well. So I'd like to finish off with an example of a project. Again, Tracey and I were speaking yesterday, and we're like, the things that come up all the time is we're fixing other people's designs. So this came across to me last year, a site. They gave me the plans, and they said, Vaughn, can you have a look at this? And I said, yeah, I'll have a look at it. So the cars, that's me driving the cars around to check the turning works, all right? So you can see on the right-hand side there, that last bay, that car is going to find it very difficult to do a U-turn and actually get out of the site. The service truck who's going to pick up your bins, he's going to have it's very difficult for him to get out and access to the road. The vacuum bays are down here in the middle of nowhere. there's wash bays that, in terms of queuing, will end up blocking your autos here on the left-hand side. It's just a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And so they engaged me to help them with fixing up the design, and they wanted to maintain the number of wash bays, and we only had access in and out. That was my constraints. So I ended up fixing the design, and you can see here the flow is a lot better. You come in, there's queuing sections for the super bays to the left, and we put the super bays to the left. So they're the bigger cars, they're your boats and your caravans. They take up the most queuing, so you want to put them at the back, right? Then your autos are next, and then your self-serves. And you can see that when you come into the site, you can actually, there's a two-way directional flow, two-way directional internal road. So if there's queuing, you can go get a vacuum and a dog wash, and then when you're done, you can go queue for your wash. There's also a passing lane, so this is a site where there's probably going to be a lot of staff, so they want to be able to walk around and drive around as well. The one thing that's not ideal, but the client, it was an iterative process back and forth with working out the best way to fit what the client wanted, and that was, we ended up having a remote plant room. So again, that's not ideal. You're running more services a long way away, but together with the equipment supplier, we worked out that that was okay, and it worked out. We need to upgrade some pumps and things like that, but it ended up working out really well, and the client was really happy with the design. I didn't even take over the DA works. I gave it back to the previous designer. I said, "There you go, all yours." And that's it. You can come see me at my booth. And I really wanted to also thank Doug and Fiona for all their hard work that they've put into this, and everyone else in the background. Without them, this wouldn't be all come together the way it has. And yeah, that's it.
Well done. Good job. Nailed it. Thank you, Vaughn. That was very enlightening. I can also vouch for it. So your comment about contributions is important to keep in mind for all of you who are looking to develop and do changes. So at least in New South Wales, look, all at the local government level, councils are out of money. COVID killed local government funding because all of the services got stopped, all the parking, all the fines, all those incomes. So if they don't have a good rate base, which a lot of the rural ones don't, they're dependent on state government grants, and they're basically out of cash. And in New South Wales in particular, there's a lot of cost shifting from the state down to the local level. So what that means for you is that when you come asking, hey, can I make this change? They're going to say, hey, opportunity to get some development contributions. So this is something to think about in your planning. And it's also, this is not an Australian phenomenon, it happens worldwide. So you can see this happening in the States. This is one of the reasons why all these trends towards larger, higher capacity site layouts have taken place. So anyway, thank you, Vaughn. It's very, very enlightening. So another round of applause for Vaughn, and thank you. Our next one up, again on the question, I believe, of should I build new or should I buy and fix? And a number of other things. Matt Hood, the operator of Smiley's Carwash chain in South Australia. And please make Matt welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, everyone. And
turn that on for you.
Yep.
Beautiful. There we go.
Thank you very much. I'll keep things moving. We are running out of time. There's a few things today that has already been touched on, but what I actually want to try and get across today is these are things that if you're new to the market, you've got to ask these questions. Super important. So we'll just flip straight into it. So we'll just talk about an established site for the moment. Tracey did mention about the equipment. The equipment's super important. Okay, you walk into a site for the first time, you want to buy an established site with equipment, you need to know how many cars it's roughly washed, has it had maintenance, etc. So if you're not mechanically minded, get someone in to take a look at the equipment. Okay, super important. And basically just there, as a normal rule, 5-year-old equipment's going to be fine. 10-year-old still going all right, as long as it's been been maintained. When we're starting to get to 15 years, you need to start thinking about in your budget that if not straight away, but very shortly, you're going to need to update that equipment. So when we talk a bit about maintenance. Again, an auto wash should be washed, depending on how many cars it's washing, a minimum of once every month. It should be greased. How often has the oil been changed in the pumps? Should be as a minimum every 6 months, and with a good quality oil. Check out they haven't sort of bought something on the absolute cheap there. The pits. You're buying a new car wash, looking to buy a car wash that's established. Hey, if those pits haven't been pumped for 2 or 3 years, they're going to be full of sludge. Okay, and again, that's a cost. It could be up to $4,000 depending on how many pits are being pumped. And I'm talking about underground tanks as well as your bay pits. Okay, so that's just something that's really important. Is there water all over the pump room floor? Okay, if there is, alarm bells should be ringing. Okay, so big indicator no maintenance has been done in that plant room. So make sure that you're all over that. And like I said, generally water on the pump room. We run dry pump rooms in all our car washes. The moment I see a drop of water on the ground, I know I've got a problem. Okay, so I think that's really important. What does the site look like? Really important, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't go to a restaurant that looks all dirty and grubby, would you? It's exactly the same with a car wash, okay? If you're looking at this existing site and it's run down and everything else, it potentially needs a rebrand, okay? So at the end of the day, new colours, new name, all that sort of stuff. For a rundown site, don't keep the existing name, don't keep the existing colours, okay? Signage. Really, really important. You've got to have it, but keep it simple. Don't have millions of information on a sign because no one will absolutely read it, okay? It's a given. You'll get a phone call, guaranteed. I don't know how to do this when there's instructions right there in front of them. They just don't read them. But my point is, give it that corporate feel. And if you look at any corporates out there, their signage is very, very simple. They don't overgive you information. That's really important. Garden's another thing that's really, really important on your site. So if you're looking at an existing site and it's just concrete everywhere, start thinking about where I can put some garden. And the reality is you will get more female customers if there's garden on your site. Okay, so something that you need to put into your plans straight away. When we look at competition, that is something that you need to do your homework on, okay? You need to know what you're up against in all directions from your car wash. So have a look at what their condition of their sites are, of their sites. And, at the end of the day, if there's lineups at your competitor's site, that'll tell you that people in the area like washing the cars, but it'll also tell you that your competition is running a very good site. So you need to have a look at that. Price is also important. You need to know what your opposition are selling around you if you're looking at buying this existing site. So at the end of the day, just bear in mind that you can't go in with a theory that I'll discount $5 a wash cheaper. It doesn't work. So been there, tried it, and you're thinking just because it's cheaper they'll come to you. It's not. The customer nowadays wants, and they will pay a premium price if you provide them with good quality and a clean site and everything else. So in Adelaide, at our 2 sites in Adelaide, our top wash is $25 with ceramic on it. And we're hitting really big numbers with that. One of my sites, which is an existing site, on a weekend, we're hitting 30-40% taking that top wash at $25. And it's only about, and then everything else is on the $20 wash, and there's a very small percentage taking that 16 and 18. So on our new site that's just 12 months old, we're hitting 70% on $25, okay? But we'd like to think we're providing a premium wash in a good quality facility. So just be mindful of that when you're going in with an existing site, discounting just doesn't always work. So this is something that's really important on an existing site, and it's something that, not that I've been caught on it, but almost been caught on it when it comes to leases. The first question on a lease you need to ask, how much lease is left on the existing lease, okay? If it's only 5 years, well, you need to be negotiating straight away a longer lease, okay? Really, really important. How much is the lease payment? People forget to ask it. How much do I actually have to pay the landlord every month on this lease? Again, make sure you know that. The third point, really important, how will the lease increase? Okay, so is it CPI or is it a fixed percentage? So within that, there is certainly some real catches, and what happens is you'll see car washes come on the market, they're cheap as anything, but when you actually look at the actual lease, that they've got to the point where the business is not making any money because the lease is going up too high, and it's going to continue to go up too high. So and the other thing is just on point 4 there, sit down at the start and work out roughly what you're going to be paying down the track 10, 15 years' time. Can the business sustain the increases of the lease? Okay, so again, that's just so important that you know what it's going to be down the track. So always negotiate options if you can and try and get the biggest, longest lease you can. And the reason for that, if you're getting a longer lease, that when you're finished and ready to retire, you've actually got something to sell. Okay? If you've got a lease that basically runs for 5 years and you're out of the place, the landlord says, I want you out, you've got nothing to sell. Whereas if you've got a 15, 20, 25-year lease and you use up 10 years of that lease, you've still got something to sell. Really, really important, okay? Point number 5, always get your lawyer to have a look over the current lease. Make sure there's no hidden surprises within that lease, okay? I can't stress that enough. It's super important. Don't just go signing leases. If it's a crappy lease, sometimes try to renegotiate that lease. Now, that won't always happen if there's an existing lease in place, but you potentially can say, hey, look, this lease is super old. Just recently, I had a wash that I almost bought, super cheap, but it was a crappy lease. It really was a crappy lease, and I wanted a new lease. Obviously, the landlord didn't want that happen because he knew it was a great lease, and that was why the business was being sold. We didn't eventually buy that lease. Okay, so that's on existing sites. That's a quick overview. Now, just on a new site, let's just have a look at a couple of things there. My first point, is traffic count important? Because when you start to talk to people in the industry, they're going to go, got to have lots of traffic, got to have lots of traffic. Yes, they're right. But also, if you can find a new site that has lots of residential around you, that site will do very, very well. Because what we do know from our sites in Adelaide, that 80% of our customers are local residents within that area. The other sort of 20% are flipping past the site or car wash, and in we come. So now, with also on that, we've talked about councils and everything else. I almost made an absolute major boo-boo just recently on a site. Had put in an offer on a site, found this great site, awesome, ticked all the boxes. At the last minute, luckily my wife said to me, hey, can you just ring the council or your local shire and just make sure there's no other car washes going up in the area? Lucky I did, because there was one right next door. Almost bought. I had put in the offer, it was almost about to be accepted, and so it was absolutely, luckily the wife said to me that you better ring it, and lucky I did. So something just like that, just ring the council, just make sure there's not already DA approval for another wash. So luckily we hadn't had our offer accepted, all that sort of stuff, and that was all good. So we spoke about traffic count. Now, just also, we've spoken about different sites today. That's just a picture of my first site in SA country. And I just want to, it talks about a corner block, and the beauty of that is pretty much right in front of us there. They can come straight in, drive through, exit on the other side. Corner blocks are gold, so not always going to find one, but if you can find a corner block, you're going to get more bang for your buck on that. And our auto's just around to the left there, so nice flow in and out. That site being in SA country, we've gone a little bit wider bay, so 5 metre wide internals on the self-serve bays, about a 3.9 metre height, which allows us to get big caravans in there, small trucks, motorhomes, all that sort of stuff. That site is also for sale if anyone wants to talk to me about that. So, ka-ching, ka-ching. We talked also about residential and everything else there today. There's a picture of our new site in Adelaide, and you can see the picture of the house just in the back of that picture there. So we had commercial either side of us, but at the back was residential. Now that opened up a can of worms for us in the form of acoustic reports. So you're generally talking $4,000 to $5,000, maybe $6,000 for an acoustic report. That wall there was Hebel acoustic panels all the way around. It was about $50,000. So it was 3 metres at the back, 3.6 metres to the left there, and we had to put that up. That was part of the acoustic report. The acoustic report come back and said, this is what we have to do on the fencing. So just be mindful, if you find a site you've got residential backing on it, just be mindful that there's going to be some added cost to you potentially because of that residential. Not impossible. We got that through, and we got 24/7 on that site. So yeah, just to show you that. Again, we talked about auto and self-serve queuing. That's just a picture of our brand new site there in Adelaide. 3 autos back there. We were the first site in Adelaide to actually have 3 autos on site. Just to the right of it is 3 self-serve bays as well. So the other thing that's just important is thinking about the floor to ceiling height. So when you're designing the new wash, and obviously you've got the people here who will make sure that happens for you, but make sure you've got enough room above the top of the automatic, because at some stage you'll need to be up there and doing some work and maintenance and stuff like that. I've seen washes where they've got that much room above the top, and yeah, certainly that can be a problem. The vacuum and drying area, I've just put that on there. If you can put a roof over the top, always put a roof over the top of your vacuum and drying area. People will wash their cars on a rainy day, and the more the better, because the other thing we've found is in the SA country site, no one chamois their cars. In the city, lots of people chamois their cars. So the more drying areas and stuff like that is the better. Just want to talk about the actual build side of things. And bear in mind a car wash is a specialised build. You need experts like Tracey and Vaughn giving you the right advice on the actual build. So you can't just go to any builder and say, build me a car wash. There is some know-how that's required. I'm a big fan of water recycling, but I just want to point out there's some things that you need to be aware of with water recycling. So we have water recycling on all our sites. I'm a big fan, as I said, but there is some complexity that the water recycling does add. So those 4 tanks there are 9,000 litre tanks each with a baffle inside of them, which basically the water out of the auto bays, which are just to your right, comes into the first tank, flows through to each tank, up into the plant room, through the water recycling plant, and it comes back down and keeps going. So my point there is the excavation of that site there was about $14,000 just to dig that hole and cart the dirt away. In Adelaide, we had to cart that dirt 20 kilometres away. There was just no one would take it. So the tanks, about $30,000 worth of tanks there. And then after that was all in place and all the plumbing, we then had to put a concrete slurry around those tanks, which was about $5,000 to stop them from popping. Okay, so that's something that we need to obviously be aware of. So we put water in to make sure, because once the concrete's down and they pop, you're in all sorts of trouble. So the $5,000 was worth spending, but as I said, it's just adds a little bit of added cost to the water recycling. But the other thing about water recycling is that it drought proofs you. So in an event that we have a drought and everything turns pear-shaped, you've got a better chance of staying open with water recycling. So I do highly recommend spend the extra money on water recycling, because at the moment we haven't got an issue with droughts, but certainly down the track we could have. Okay, fixed price with that. Try to always get your fixed price with the builder. However, the builder's going to want certain things from you. He's going to want working drawings. Okay, so they actually how to build the car wash, hydraulic drawings, which is all your plumbing, underground plumbing. Okay, car wash equipment drawings. How does all the plumbing for the car wash equipment got to go into the plant room? Electrical layouts, okay? So I'm talking about, all your flood lighting and stuff like that, where all your light switches are. Structural engineering drawings. So the engineer's going to make sure the place is not going to fall over. And of course your civil drawings, which is for your stormwater and concrete paving. So you need to have all that information in place before you can go to a builder and get your fixed price. But I highly recommend you get that in place, go to the builder and get your fixed price. Penalties for not finishing on time is something that you should have in place, otherwise they will go off and do other jobs. Highly recommend any bit of steel on the site. I've been caught before where I haven't done that, and you should hot dip galv all steel work on sites. And if you can, spend the money, put ceilings in your autos, ceilings in your self-serve bays. And one of the main reasons for that is pigeons will get in there or birds will get in there, and there's nothing worse than a customer washing a car and a bird dropping comes down from the ceiling and goes splat on the car. It's happened in front of me. It's embarrassing. Spend the money on that. So that's pretty much it for me. I'll be hanging around, so if anyone's got any questions, please don't hesitate to come up and have a chat to me, or if you want to have a chat down the track, by all means, only too happy to have a chat to anyone, and that's good. So thank you very much.
Well done, well done. Thank you, Matt. You can see why his car washes are named Smileys. Well done. Wealth of information here, ladies and gentlemen. All of us will be on the floor and around the show the rest of the day, so please do seek us out afterwards to ask questions. Do we have Mr. Andre from the U.S. for a live cutover? Good. All right, so our final speaker today represents Sonny's, the car wash factory in the United States, and one of our sponsor for today, for the event here, together with Car Wash Solutions Australia. So I'll tee this up. He is a previous operator and long-term trainer and expert in how the industry has progressed in the United States. A personal remembrance here. I remember about 20 years ago talking to Paul Fazio, who's the son of the founder of Sonny's, who said, you know, this is dumb. We're doing this wrong as suppliers. This industry is messed up. I'm going to change it. And we're all like, yeah, okay, whatever, Paul. Well, he did that and then some. Sonny just dominates over there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let us hear from Sonny's, the car wash factory, via Robert Andre, live cross to the United States.
Hey everyone, how are you? Well, I'm going to try and go a little bit quick here because a lot of the information the other presenters have provided you with, but I'm going to share a little bit about our company, the industry, and some trends, and just kind of take you guys through this. Let's see, here we go. All right, so family history of Sonny. So very quickly, the company started in 1949. It was a Life magazine article in 1947 that piqued the interest of Sonny Fazio and got him involved in the car wash industry. He moved from the retail side into manufacturing during the mid-70s. Like was previously stated, Paul Fazio is still our CEO, and we're the largest supplier in the world. Myself personally, I've been with the company for 16 years now. I'm not from Australia, like some of the other speakers. I've been to Australia. Everybody says, how were the beaches when you're in Australia? I got to see the beaches about that close. I got up very close and personal about every single car wash that we could possibly see during my time there. So I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend live and look forward to coming back again in the flesh in the future. All right, starting with some of the innovations, what's going on with technology and innovations in the car wash industry. Historically, where we were in conveyorized car washing, we had materials that were originally made out of hemp and polypropylene. These brushes could do things like scratch and damage. Where we're at today is a totally different world. We're using materials that are mostly closed cell foams and microfibers, very friendly, very safe. Where are we going? More control over the brushes from a technology standpoint, as far as being able to control pressures and speed on the fly, being able to sense the width of vehicles and adjust each brush accordingly to each vehicle. So a lot of cool things happening with technology as it pertains to washing cars. Controls is what operates and runs the car wash. They're all operated by controls. What's nice about the technology today, most systems you can operate from anywhere. A lot of them are going to be cloud-based, meaning the data's up there. You can pull it down from anywhere in the world at any time. What also is nice about the cloud-based is it allows us to scale very quickly. We can develop, if a customer has an idea, a request, and we get multiple requests, we can scale and deploy that very quickly because of the cloud-based system. Things like pay stations, those are becoming extremely popular. Customer pulls up to a box, they select their wash, they pay for their membership. Things like LPR, license plate recognition, being able to sell a membership based off of the license plate, using that same license plate to queue the cars. So instead of having to worry about the order they're in, the license plates figure it out. The smart MCCs that are going to automate and allow better control of the equipment. So a lot of really cool things going on there with technology. This is the LPR. It's going to be cameras that are placed, and they're going to, again, read the license plate. What this allows us to do is, like during the pandemic, where people were concerned about having interactions with others, all over the world, and definitely, in Australia and here in the States, we were able to sell unlimited memberships at car washes without ever having to interact with the customer. They would touch the machine, they would select their wash, add the membership, the camera would scan their license plate, and that's it, it's done. Nobody ever had to get in their car and place a sticker or a tag or fill out any paperwork. Everything was done between the customer and the machine. So Like others have stated, the membership is where the industry is going and being driven. It is heavily membership based in the States. And I think we're starting to see that take on from what I've heard from some of the other speakers as well in Australia. Conveyors. The conveyors are the device that moves the vehicles through the car wash. Two main types that you'll find in the industry. What's called a over-under, which is the chain style, been around for a very long time, very reliable, very economical. And then there's what's called the belt conveyors. Very different experience. You can wash just about any type of car. Some people claim they're easier to load and quicker, but different styles available for depending to meet your needs. Water, the previous speaker was just mentioning water and what goes on there. Where we're at with water, we have a company, Velocity Waterworks. We do lots of things for the system to make them very maintenance friendly, eliminate odor. A lot of time when you're recycling water, you can develop an odor. So we eliminate the odor. And where are we going with the technology? Eventually, you'll be able to get to 100% reclaim, free of oil and contaminants, advanced monitoring systems to detect any problems with the water. Water, as you all know, is a resource that all the governments, municipalities all over are monitoring very heavily. And the more efficient and data we can report, the better it's going to be for our industry as a whole. Chemical distribution, the chemistry that's being used, again, environmentally friendly chemistry. Where we were, it used to be in big drums and containers. Now it's becoming more compact. We're also getting remote controlled, precise monitoring. You can manage your inventories from anywhere, see usage at any time. So really cool technology going on there. The concentrate chemicals, what's nice about that, it's less space, easier to ship, easier to maintain, and safer for your employees to handle as well as they're moving it around the facilities. Customer experience. So customer experience is huge. People come to the car wash, they want a clean vehicle. That's first and foremost, is getting a clean vehicle. No matter where in the world you are, that's what the customers want. But if you can add a fun, friendly experience to it, it's just an extra bonus for the customer. So the experience is everything from the light show, the signage, to the smiling of your employees, the uniforms they're wearing, the facility cleanliness, but delivering a customer experience will pay dividends. Trends. What are the trends that we're seeing? These are for the US. So you can see down here, I've got the American flag, and these came from Ibis World in 2020. I'll show some Australia specific data here, but I think there's a major correlation here. So I wanted to share that. So in the US, what are we seeing? More cars on the road. The average car age in the US in 2019 was 11.8 years old. The studies show that the older the vehicles, the more people take care of them. Taking care of them includes washing it frequently. So that is good as we start to see the vehicles get a little bit up there in age. People are holding on to them longer. They're going to maintain them better. Also, as we get new cars on the road, that increases our population, our customer base. So the registrations are increasing, going up, which is good for car washing. What type of car washes are being built in the industry now? I wanted to show this. This is from our internal data. You can see Express, which is the model with free vacuums and pay stations, not a lot of employees being utilized. That model has grown tremendously throughout the years. You can see in 2009, it was 75% of our business. A flex model, which is half express, half full, was 20%, and full service was 5%. Fast forward to 2019, you go 95, 4, and 1. And I think in 2020, it was like 97% express is being built. Again, that's being driven by the type of investors. There is still a market for the people that want to do the full serve. You've just got to be willing to commit to your business and build the right team to operate the business to be successful there. The conveyor history in the United States, the express model was really born in 2001. Why am I sharing that? This is what really drove the growth in the United States in car washing. This is where the industry took off with the express model. It was value priced, free vacuums, pay stations where people don't have to talk to other people, elimination on labor, which was good for the operators, and it was a focus on speed and consistency utilizing automation. This is really what allowed our industry to take off here in the United States. Evolving industry, why the express? What do customers want? Value, speed, convenience, quality, and consistency. Every time they come, they want the same experience. That's why people like fast food chains. It's not because the food's great. They know what they're going to get when they show up. So having a replicatable experience, the consistency. They don't like being sold. They don't like pushy salespeople. They'd rather choose their wash on the pay station. They don't like dealing with people. A lot of people are becoming, especially the younger generation, they're used to interfacing with a machine. Give them a machine to interface with. They don't like giving up their vehicle. It's a personal space. They don't like handing it off to other people. They don't like having attendants in their vehicle. They can self-vacuum, and price sensitive. The express model typically offers a lower price alternative. And the impulse versus car wash investment, I think Eric Wulf said during his piece that he was old enough to remember when weather and rain would drive people to stay away from car wash. That's the investment piece. If people are paying, $20, $30 for a car wash, it's an investment to them. They check the weather. They see if it's going to rain. That's US dollars. If it's a $7 car wash, a $10 car wash, the weather doesn't play into the factor as much. They're more likely to wash more often. The other thing we're seeing that is smaller tunnels as real estate becomes more expensive. I think this is good for the Australian market in certain areas where real estate is extremely expensive. You can do a lot in these smaller sites, still wash a ton of cars, give the same experience, but without having as big of a footprint on the real estate requirements. What we have here, this is a previous car wash that I used to be a partner in. I sold this actually in December of last year to one of the consolidators, private equity groups that Eric was talking about that are consolidating the industry. This was originally had some self-serve bays, then we converted it into a double tunnel. So you can do two mini tunnels side by side, and people always ask, can they wash volume? The last year we owned it, we washed 297,000 vehicles through that facility. So I think there's a lot going on with that for smaller footprints where you can still do a lot of volume. Evolving industry, resilience. Others have already mentioned this. You can't wash cars on the internet. I remember Sonny talking about, since he started in the car wash industry in 1949, that he never remembered the economy being a major detriment to the industry. Back then, it was always weather. The industry performed well through the recession in 2008. We're more insulated now than ever with the membership plans. In fact, a lot of the express car washes here in the US, they grew their membership base during the pandemic. There's a lot of publicly traded car wash company now that you can go see all their disclosures. It'll tell you how many memberships they have in their portfolio. It's really interesting what's happening with that. The express, they can stay open a lot of times when you have safety shutdowns. At least here in the US, we were able to keep a lot of the express washes open during the pandemic due to little to no contact between employees and the customers. And again, the LPR allowing that no contact with the pay stations, very limited touch points. The customers felt safe. They wanted to get out of the house. The car wash gave them a place to go. And it was actually very good for the business here in the US. The ownership in the car washes, going back, it was originally family owned and operated. Then it became small private investors, had 5 to 15 locations. Then we started getting into the well-funded investors in larger groups. Today, like Eric said earlier, private equity, institutional investors, and family funds. There's a number of groups that a couple of years ago weren't even on the map. One of them that I work with very closely, when I first started working with them 2 years ago, they had 2 car washes. Today, they have 104 locations. So these people are scaling rapidly, originally through acquisitions and now through new builds as the multiples on the acquisitions have gotten kind of a little bit high, but very strong still in the acquisition space as well. Here's some key statistics for Australia. This came from Ibis World study that was just done July 22. You can see they say there's 1,711. They categorize it as car care businesses, so it says detailing, car washing. So it's detailing and car washing. Didn't give me a breakout of how many car wash centers versus detail. You can see that you had negative growth. Why the negative growth? Pretty obvious. The pandemic caused that. They're expecting it to come back up and continue to grow. 3,533 employees, 112.8 million in wages, the 577.8 in revenue. Again, it was said earlier that somebody believed that was understated. I would believe that as well. With the limited knowledge I have on the marketplace, I would believe that to be understated as well. But there is statistics out there and data that can kind of give you an idea of where things are going. Key external drivers, availability of water, the household income to discretionary income, the hours worked, number of motor vehicles, and average age of the vehicle. industry structure, you can see the things that are positive impacts, mixed and negative impacts. And if anybody wants this presentation, they can email me, and I'd be more than happy to share it. You've got some of the trends. Industry enterprise numbers have fallen as some inefficient operators and sole traders have exited. I would imagine that you're going to start seeing in Australia, like we've seen here in the United States, a lot of consolidation through the groups. Your larger chains, your number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, they'll start buying 6 through 10 as the consolidation continues, the larger investors come in. Product, service, and segmentation. Here you can see a little bit of a breakout for Australia. They say it's 36% in-bay automatics, 35, almost 36% self-serve, 10% tunnel, 12.9% manual car wash, and 5.2 is going to be mobile car washes. What's interesting here is this breaks out the major players. Again, this is per IBIS World, and they're saying that Magic Hand Car Wash has 8% of the market share. The definition for IBIS World, in order to have a key market player, they have to have at least 5% market share. What's interesting here in the US, we do not have any single operator that currently has 5% or greater market share. My personal observations and some final thoughts. Really, it's about the basics. No matter the model, if you're going to do a hand car wash, a mobile car wash, any of the models, what do the customers want? They want to get a clean, dry, shiny car, and they want it fast. Fast is relative. If it's a full serve, it might be 30 minutes, but if it's consistently 30 minutes, that's fast. If it's an express, it might be 3 minutes, but they want it fast. You have to have process and procedures to drive that consistency throughout the experience of your staff and for your customers. A professional environment. When they pull into the car wash, they want it to be clean. They want the employees to look friendly and be clean. And then consistency. And then here I have a quote, and it's just superior performance in this competitive world is about mastering the basics. So it's just doing the basics. If you do these basic things and deliver these, and also having a good location, that's been spoken a lot today. Location is key to success, but if you have a good location and then deliver on these things, you will have a successful business for sure. I believe the industry is going to see continued growth at a wide, quick pace for at least the next 10 years. And again, that reoccurring theme, the customers want value, speed, and convenience. That is key to getting them to come back. And if you'd like more information on the car wash industry or the products that we have available, you can come visit the team in stand 3A and 3B. Obviously, I will not be there. Again, I wish I could have been there in person. And next time I hope to be able to be there. So thank you very much. Tried to make it as quick as possible due to the time, but I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. In case you couldn't hear that, that was uproarious applause for you, so well done.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is anytime you get 2 or more car wash people together, we always talk more than we're supposed to, so we are a little bit over time. We will have time for a couple of questions before we need to proceed into the AGM. I would just reiterate that there's a wealth of information in this room. You've heard from the North American people, sort of what the trend looks like over there and where we're probably headed in some sort of rhyming way. You've got practical hands-on experience here on the stage in front of you. Also in the audience, I see a number of experienced operators out there. We will all be around today. I'd probably be also remiss, so first of all, any questions that you would have for Robert and follow on to his presentation can be handled by the guys in the yellow shirts, Josh and his team. And then obviously we have a representative here from the International Car Wash Association. Kim, would you mind standing up? Yeah, there she is. Welcome down under. Thanks for coming. Who can field any queries related to Eric's presentation and also the ICA Lead online learning platforms. So with that, I will open up the floor to any questions. I know we're not a shy bunch. I've been in this industry for 30 years. Who wants to go first? There's one in the back. Philip. Oh, good. I won't have to repeat that because we'll hear you. Perfect.
With hand car washes, I was talking to Crystal a couple of years ago, and he had a staff of 400 people, and he had a turnover of 4,000 per year. Is that changed any? Has it got less, or is it still turnover one person per 10, or 10 per one person?
Anybody up here want to take a stab at that? Rob?
Yeah, actually, on the bus tour, Anthony, when we went out the other day, staffing is a global problem. But what Anthony's done is transitioned from a hand wash a few years back and automated his facilities, understanding that the labour wasn't available, it was too expensive, and the return on investment didn't exist. Excuse me. So, yes, he doesn't have those numbers anymore in that amount of staff. Still, the turnover is still significant in staff coming in and leaving sites. It's a very transitional operation. That's why it's very important, what I touched on before, is in the employee experience is very important. We've just employed a person in our organisation, and their role is an employee experience manager to engage our staff to retain them. That's very important.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, you would have seen, anybody who lives here in Sydney, you would have seen Crystal over the last few years sort of get ahead of that trend. You could see it coming, see challenges with labour anyway, and obviously the pandemic just accelerated that massively. So, any other questions while we have the time? Yes, sir, right down here in the front. Are we able to get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation? Doug, would you like to field that one?
Of course. I'll be out with you next week.
Yes, you certainly will. So that is part and parcel of your car wash show experience. They'll be available. Online, how do we do that? What's our delivery methodology?
Email everybody who's eligible to come today, and we might have to do those by drop or something like that.
Right, so we will be in touch, but you will get all this information. Any additional questions before we move into the AGM? Come on, don't be shy. You're here. This is your opportunity. Yes, sir, right in the back.
How do the memberships work for the car wash?
Talk to Fiona.
How does the membership work for the car wash facility? I assume you're talking about the recurring revenue model, the membership trap. Yeah. Rob, would you like to take a stab at that one?
Certainly. Come and see me at my stand at Pulse, and I'll look after. But very simply, technology allows us very simply, use your phone, like any membership, you log in, put your credit card details, select your option that you want, program, whether exterior wash, interior, exterior, and it's a recurring. It's all done through the system, back office, and that's where it makes it easy for the customer. They just do it once and it just reoccurs. No different to your Netflix as you sign up with Netflix. That's how simple we've made it.
And from an owner's point of view, the beauty of it is that every month at the start of the month, or as the payments come in every month, that bang, there's 50,000 hit your bank account right from word go. And it doesn't matter if it's raining, are you still getting paid? So
many washes per month?
You can select it. The technology allows you to have limited wash or unlimited. The technologies that are available out there, including ours, will tell you the frequency, the pattern of your customer across all the club membership, so you know how many times they return. You'll have definitely, and everybody will confirm this, all the other suppliers, you will have people that abuse Unlimited Wash Club and people that use it only once or twice a month. So you've got a whole spectrum range. I can tell you in our business, across our members, it ranges on return business from 1.8 to about 2.3 visits per month. But I've got an abuser who uses our site 66 times a month. So he's an autistic person who's passionate about car wash, so we let him be. But what's been introduced is fair use policy now. No different to your internet. There's an option for fair use policy. We also have Uber drivers. We've actually encouraged them because where we are in Canberra, we've had to train people, the whole principle, educate the market. And one of the things that we've done in the Canberra market is allowed commercial vehicles, so Uber drivers, not taxis, but Uber drivers. So our Uber drivers on average will use 12 to 22 times a month. So they get great value, spend no money, they're Scrooges, but they're great advocates because when their customers go in their car, they say, where do you get your car cleaned? Then everybody says Waves. So that's marketing for us. So I put it down that it's brand awareness and marketing.
Great. Question down there in the back. Yes, sir. Oh, here comes the mic. Perfect.
Thank you for this presentation. It's very informative. We're very new to this, and trying to get information as much as we can. The difference between the automatic wash and a conveyor system, is that something of more volume, or is it the customer is a better wash experience for the customer?
So I'll field that in the first instance. First and foremost, it's about volume. It's just an architecture that supports the kind of volumes that you need in order to pull off a wash club. As far as the customer experience goes, you guys have operated multiple ones of both. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I'll answer that. Sorry. Tunnel experience is far greater experience than the autos. Especially today, like you'll see the manufacturers that are at today's suppliers, you can add a lot of experience with coloured light theatre. In our business, we call it the FFE, Family Fun Experience. You're targeting the young kids, that audience. The Americans do it very well. McDonald's does it very well, the retailers. What you do is you create engagement with families and children at an early age, and they will be your customer for life if you deliver a good experience. So we do Halloween. We're the first in Australia to do Halloween during COVID. It was the best thing we ever did. We were washing cars till 4 o'clock in the morning. Went crazy. And we put on proper theatre. We invested a lot of money like the Americans do, and it was a great sensation for us. We got over 16,500 people on Facebook share it, and people were queuing up. We did it for 3 nights, and they were queuing up every night. It went crazy. So yes, tunnels, number one, is designed for volume. Number two, experience. Invest in lighting, coloured lights, flashing. The way you paint the bay, you make it dark. If you want the lights to actually light up and create a stronger effect. So there's a whole bunch of available technologies now that have come down in price to make that experience with the coloured foams much better. And also that interaction of the equipment. Predominantly tunnels are 98% are all friction tunnels, so there's a lot of engagement with different coloured brushes and the way that they move.
So something to keep in mind in addition to that, so there's a massively different investment profile in those kind of things as well. So not just the equipment itself that you have to acquire, but also the civils that go around it. So Vaughn, or Tracey, do you have any quick thoughts on that? Tunnels versus autos?
I haven't done a whole heap of tunnels, but one thing I was going to ask was at what volume of people coming through your auto bay would you actually consider putting in a tunnel system? Rob?
Well, it's interesting you ask that because you can have multiple in-bay automatics, and we also have in-bay automatics, and that being both friction and touchless. So what we have is our tunnel shuts off because tunnel at the moment does require labour to load it. In Canada, they have unmanned tunnels in service stations. In Australia, we're finding it even difficult to get people onto a tunnel. That's why the new technologies make it easier as they're becoming more experienced. But certainly the volume, a touch-free, you're looking at volumes from, say, 12 in a rollover, 12 down to 6, depending on the machine, per bay, per hour, where a tunnel in Australia, typically a good-sized tunnel will give you volumes from about 60 to 80, 90 cars an hour. No, very few cars would do 80, 90 cars an hour unless they're giving them all away and they're loading them. On average, you're sitting about 40 to 80 cars is pretty comfortable in peak demand. It's for that peak demand on Saturday, Sunday when people come, you can pump those cars through. Because it's only, you've got a 10-hour window. So you might do 400 or 500 cars a day if you're really pumping it all day long.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. At our new site, that's with the three autos, Monday to Friday, quite often we don't need the 3. It's on that Saturdays and Sundays and Friday afternoons that we need the 3 so we don't get turnarounds.
And I'll just add to that, what's changed on our site, the one that I said earlier, 75% of our latest site, 75% of our customers are club members. They're using now the facility 7 days a week because it's easy accessible. We extended our business hours and they don't want to take up their weekends. So it's a lifestyle change. So we can turn cars around that's washed and vacuumed in under 15 minutes. So we're super fast and that's what we concentrate on. And our customers are coming during the weekdays. So we've been able to push them because now they don't want to wait 20 minutes or half an hour. That's too long. We've got sites that take an hour and a half in the city because of just constraints. It's old, so they don't want to go there. They come to the fast site, and that's during the week because they can say, I can sneak in at lunchtime, I can get in and pump them out. And that's the difference that you have with the tunnel. It can pump that volume.
Yeah, one of our sites, we have an hour wait on a Saturday.
It's a long time.
A long time. And they sit there and wait.
And that's the thing is, definitely that's why we have on our sites as well, where the customer, that experience when they're on the tunnel or even in an auto, the coloured lights and everything, if they're in a tunnel and they're moving and then they're driving around in the traffic and then get into another belt and they don't have to get out once like they do with us, we see the customer engagement. They're only out for 7 minutes through a window watching their car get in vacuum. They never lose eye contact with their vehicle. Eric and even people say they don't want people touching their cars on the inside. We have basically a fishbowl. The customer gets out of their car, it jumps onto a belt, it's slingshotted down, the customer's there following their car, through auto doors, jump back in and go. And that's all done in between 7 and 9 minutes.
Right. There was a question in the back, sir. I see you here, sir. One in the back there. So the question was, what kind of a population base do you need to pull off a tunnel?
Depends on competition. In America, I know they put tunnels in populations of 15,000 people. I think in Australia, it's probably a bit low to invest if you've got a population of 15,000 people. My gut feeling, it's only based on gut and intuition, if you've got a population of maybe 40 to 60, that would be sort of on the low end. But I'll give you an example. Canberra's got a population of 400 people, 400,000. I have 3 tunnels in Canberra, so if you do the numbers there, that averages just over 130,000 per tunnel, and we're not at capacity at all. We still got, and I have strategies to probably install maybe 1 or 2 more tunnels in Canberra.
And I think if you see the trends that happen in other overseas markets sort of accelerate down here, you'll see that number drop over time.
Yeah.
I would have thought. So, all right, final question, sir, right here in front.
Question for Matt. Is there a reason why you chose to go for 3 autos rather than putting a tunnel in?
Yeah, there was. The main reason was that we actually, because that is one of the main arterial roads through Adelaide, about 55,000 cars a day. So from 6 o'clock in the morning to about 10 o'clock, it is bumper to bumper out the front. And again, from 3 till probably 7, we were going to have trouble getting cars off site. It was going to continually be stopping the tunnel. So otherwise I would have done that. We did look at a tunnel for that site, and that was going to be our main problem, was actually getting cars off site. We didn't have the width. We had a bit more width where we could have S-bend them back into the site and then back out again before they hit the main traffic. We would have done that. But unfortunately, that just didn't allow us to get cars off the site. So we then decided that let's go with the 3 autos, and it's at this point it's been very successful.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found it informative and worth your while. Expertise is all around today. So a big round of applause again for our panel. And our overseas cutovers. Thank you very much, guys, from the States. Appreciate you staying up.
Thanks for having me.
And now I turn it over to the president of the Australian Car Wash Association, I believe.
We might just have a 5-minute break.
5-minute break, and then
We're going to do the AGM, so any AQUA members, if you just wouldn't mind coming back in so that we can get a quorum. We'll keep it pretty short, but take a break.
Yep. Be back in 5 to make a quorum, if you please, if you're members. Thank you.
Yes, I didn't get a torch.
Sure.
Oops.